Elliott. I'm, let's see, DMVJS on Twitter and Capping Kirk on Twitter. And I've been DJ for 20 years and also a JavaScript engineer for probably longer than that. Probably about 20 years as well, I guess. So let's see, 95 pretty much for both of those. Maybe that's when JavaScript was created. So yeah, let's see. It looks like it's been 30 years? No. 90, 0, 1, 2. Oh my God, it's been 30 years. Okay. So I've been in both of those fields for about 30 years. So I've been learning a lot from different parts of my career. I've learned different ways to DJ, to make people dance. And one of those ways was working in Mooresville, Indiana at the Junction with DJ Top Speed, DJ Sonic, and some of those guys. And that was probably like 04, 03, and that working in that area for that time. First of all, I already liked hip hop, and I wanted to be a DJ already. But then seeing that, I don't want to go there. Hold on, let me turn this down a little bit. Seeing that that you could DJ, people could dance, and also I think crunk was very popular then. So when crunk was popular, it felt like America was united to me in a way, in a special way. So maybe that's what I'm trying to facilitate. But anyway, I've got this website that plays mixes, and so I want to show how it works, what it does, talk about my motivation, and share the project here in video. Because I've tried to talk about this with people, and sometimes I get lost, and sometimes I don't say all the things I need to say. Also, I think some people in passing maybe don't appreciate what it does, and I just want to make it obvious so that you know, people can build on it if they want. So one thing I'll point out is that there's a GitHub for this project repository. It doesn't have any music in it, right? Because that would be like a crime or something. But I do plan to put my own music into here to like release some music this way. So I think it could be a platform, at least for me. So that's exciting. I haven't done that yet, but I've got a little README about what it is, how it works and stuff. And then, you know, making it work, of course, you can hear the music playing. So I'll show you a couple things. Let's see, this is just a big emoji. Right, it's a live hot mix crunk DJ. So right now there's two songs playing at the same time. Let's see which ones they are. We've got, that's the next song, I think. There we go. So this song is playing now. Master Ace, Born to Roll instrumental, just switched on. And also behind that you can hear Too Short, Couldn't Be a Better Player instrumental. So both of those songs are playing. So the BPM is operating at 94 beats per minute right now. And the key, when there's a computed key, that gets considered, otherwise it uses key. So we've got 9 and 9, so I'm gonna guess the key is 9. And it could be that is, when it's on key 9, it can pick songs from also 8 or 10. So the way this algorithm is set up. So then it shows the titles and stuff, and with the next song coming up. Key of Shine, there we go. Just switch to Key of Shine and See Murder, Run On Call there. And this is the next two songs coming up. All right, and it says the key. So it was actually in 8 before, now it's in 9, and then it'll be in 10. So, so what's going on though, there's two versions of each song. And let's see, we have station identification. So we'll hear an intro next, and then a main version. So listen here, I think it's coming up soon. Oh, it looks like one more. So there's 4 16s in the main version. There's 1 16 in the intro version. So here comes. Played a little sample, did a little, two samples actually. The second sample was on beat. The first one starts on the 1, of course it's on beat. The second one starts in a funny place, but it's nicely timed, and it would be tricky for a DJ to also do that as well as play 2 songs that are on key every 64 beats. But that's what this thing does. And it also walks around keys as it does it. So that's this thing's job. It's more like a clock really than like a DJ, where a DJ tries to be like a clock. This is like a clock that's trying to be like a DJ. So it's gonna go through these songs, and let's see, the songs that are in there for this tempo for 98, these are the songs that are in by key. and now it's off by 1. So this is 1, and this is 2, right? And this is 12 down here. You see what key are we now? We're in 12 is coming up. So for 12, right, it's going to look at these songs, and it's going to look at these songs, and it's going to look at these songs. So there's a lot of songs that it can see there to consider for this next one. But it picked these 2 songs. Let's see if it's coming up now. Okay, well, it's almost there. Anyway, I think you're getting an idea of how this thing works. We'll hear the next mix, and then I'll talk about something else. There it goes. Pause didn't work there. That kind of sucked. Okay, well, anyway, let's talk about the code now. What's going on here? So the first version of this was like an index HTML, very static file, and it would use JavaScript to throw audio elements into the page that had a source. And that was okay, but it wasn't very reliable for timing, and so I just had to wait for one song to end and then start the next song. And you could do stuff like throw the image into the DOM first before you played it, and then it could preload, so like that was not so bad. And it worked really well pretty much everywhere that JavaScript was supported, so that was good. But if I wanted to play 2 songs at the exact same time, I don't know that I had a guarantee that that was possible. So that was one of my requirements for this project. I needed to be able to make 2 songs start at exactly the same time, maybe more than 2 even. I've made versions of this that have played 3 or 4 songs at a time, and they can sound cool or not. So this one just does 2. 2's more intimate, and anyway, you can get a better sound, I think, with 2. And anyway, you can always build on 2. So what we got is just an HTML page here, nothing fancy. You got this inline style. This whole system here with the colors is for the buttons in the background, so that the keys get set when the code wants to assign a new color to the background. Like here, if you notice, I don't know if I call it out. Here it's purple. Here it's blue. Right? Oops. There it's pinky. There, kind of still lavender or whatever, lilac-y. Anyway, those reflect the key that is currently selected. So this color is 2 or something like that. You know what I mean? So that's what this is for. But that all happens for free. You don't need to worry about that if you use this project. This updates dynamically from the code. This is the number of songs that are available in the library, and this is actually incorrect. Here I have a local version that's newer that updates based on the number of songs in there, so that's pretty cool. Coming soon. It's got like my link to my SoundCloud and my Twitter stuff. So this is a respectable nod to a DJ I used to work with, DJ Sonic. This felt like something he would put in a flyer, so I thought it would be cool there. Because again, this is kind of a crunk kind of vibe. Even though it's got some underground kind of songs in there, here and there, it's mostly to be crunk and to promote this unity that I spoke of earlier. And inside of the JavaScript here, let's see what we got. So this thing is a public thing that I took from somewhere that was like, if you want to get this web API audio thing to work, you need this first. And so this is the first chunk of code that I copied and pasted from somewhere, probably from Mozilla or something like that. But it's got, and I've made my own modifications to it. It wasn't a module when I first got it, but I didn't change much of it. A lot of the stuff still looks the same as when I first got it, and I didn't change it at all. So, but I did add some stuff like this and that, and the way that I do the audio is different than how it originally did it. But anyway, this thing I just kind of stole, first of all. So that's the buffer loader, which is again instrumental to making the web audio API thing work, but we'll skip over for now. I think this is the first thing that gets brought in, actually index. So this brings in a init, tap to play, and preload, and it logs for promotional use only. This is a DJ thing. Like if you get CDs as a radio DJ, they always, or records, they always say for promotional use only. I think that means you're not supposed to sell them or give them away or some. I mean, you can give them away, I guess, but it's always on stuff like mixtapes and stuff. And I think there's some funny legality where if you put this, everything's fine or something. So that's what I put there. That's what that's there for. I suggest you leave it there. I don't know if it actually provides any legal protection, but it has the illusion of doing so. So init, we'll look at next. So here, let's talk about what this is doing. So we're bringing in the song data. Okay, that's a good place to start, actually. Song data. This is all the song. This is like a list of all the songs. So in JavaScript, we're making a thing here. Const just means like, I'm going to make a thing called this, right? And this is song data. So I'm going to make a thing called song data. And so I'm making a thing called song data. And when you see this, the beginning and ending are these square brackets. That means it's an array. That means it's like a list of things. So it's like being in a box, basically. So there's the left side of the box. And like all the way down here at the very bottom, I'll just drag it down because it takes too long, is the right side of the box. So you got that, you got a little box. If it was empty, it would just look like a box. There wouldn't be anything in the middle. But here you got stuff in between it. So it's just a box. And like similar to a box, they could have done just the same thing here. But this is a different kind of thing. Instead of just being a bunch of the same thing inside there, this is what you call an object in JavaScript. So these curly thingies here is like a box too, right? If there was nothing in between, it would just be a box with curly brace shape. But instead, it's what we call an object. So it means it has a key and a value inside it, and it has multiple keys and values. So the key of artist has a value of Cypress Hill inside this object. This is the last object in the array here. This box here, it's called an array. So, and then when we're done, we export an object that is song data, which is right, an array of objects. So just if you understand that, you pretty much understand JavaScript already. So good job. And so what's going on here? They've got an ID. What are the properties and what are the values that we expect here? They all kind of are the same. So in JavaScript, when you have keys, they're usually all strings or numbers, but strings is common. Even if you use numbers, they might get saved as strings and stuff like that. So the keys, they're all strings. And by strings, I mean words, because strings probably sounds weird if you don't know, if you're not in engineering. So string just means like a word, like artist is a bunch of letters. A bunch of letters, that's a string. A string could include special characters, numbers, but the main thing is like, here's an example. This is a great example of a string right here. It's inside quotes. If you can think of a thing of being inside quotes, that's a good candidate for a string, right? So it could be, you could see here, you could put exclamation mark, numbers, whatever, funny symbols, emoji and stuff in there. Still, it would be a string. The string is just something that can exist within quotation marks, let's say. So in fact, you could, of course, if you think about it, have this symbol inside here, you know, even as well. So there's all sorts of stuff about that. That's a whole thing in JavaScript, so I'm not going to go deep in that. But just keep in mind, these objects have keys that are strings. Okay, it's pretty obvious. Then the values of those objects with string keys, they're of two different types here. One kind is a number, and one kind is a string. So sometimes we put numbers, and sometimes we would put strings. The keys, just, I know it might sound weird if you're not from JavaScript, but the keys don't need the strings around them because they're just strings. We assume they're strings, so it's no big deal. You don't have to put quotes around, but you can if you want to. JSON is something made in JavaScript that is like a way to send data around the internet, and it uses explicit double quotation marks for the strings everywhere. It's required, actually, at least in the old versions. Feels like a thing they'll change, but so far they haven't yet. So anyway, we got string keys, number values, string keys, string values. That's like all we got here, right? These are numbers, this is a string. So if you understand that, you know a good amount of JavaScript already now. And we've got an object with a comma, and another object and a comma. And there's like, right, it starts with 1. Usually they start with 0, but it starts with 1. And it goes to 229. These keys correspond to music files. So I'll try to show you here. Let me see if this is a good way to show you. Okay, good, yeah. So here, if you look at my hard drive here, this is the music OG folder. It's got a bunch of files they have really long names with leading zeros, and they have a number at the end. So, and then they have two different formats. They have MP3 and WAV for lead and body of each song. And I think they're pretty much always the same size even. Yeah, pretty close anyway. So there's a lead and a body, each in WAV and MP3, and they all have an ID, right? So every one of these, like if I play this guy here, that's I, and I know that's number 1, right? So if I look here at number 1, that's I. So I know that ID corresponds to that song, and that's true of all those songs. And that includes the key. The key, I put the key in from the real song, like before it's at the pitch 0 mark on the turntable, like it's native, what I call its native key, and native tempo. Same, we put the tempo there that it's recorded at. So like this maybe should be called computed BPM, but whatever. Anyway, it's my project. I can do whatever I want. So anyway, the key is the original key that the song has, and then if when we record it at the tempo that we have expressed here in BPM, if the key changes, we also add computed key and we put the new key in. We reanalyze the songs after recording them at the new tempo, and if the key changes, we update it with computed key. Otherwise, you can just leave key like it is if it doesn't change. Like I think this song is already 94 beats per minute pretty much, and so it didn't change much, and so you wouldn't expect the key to change in that case. But here, I think it did change a bit, and so it did have a slight effect on the key. So that's pretty cool, because that's not a thing real DJs ever do. Real DJs, first of all, they don't even really care about the key that much. They say they do, but they don't. If you think you do, you're lying. You definitely are not as religious about it as this program is. Even if you care about being on key all the time, you'd have a hard time trying to keep up with this thing. Also, again, I know this is a hot mix format, and you can do all sorts of different styles. You can do long, full versions of songs. I'm doing these are very hot mix style here. It's just doing a 16 and a 64 for each song, so it's fast. It would be challenging for a DJ to keep up with this thing, but it'd be a good training device. Also, if you wanted to like scratch and have rock a party and throw acapellas over beats, this thing is made for that. You'll look like a star if you do that with this, and it'll be beautiful because it would hurt your brain trying to do this. You'd have to have another guy that you pay to keep everything on time if you wanted to do something like that. So even if your goal is to be the best DJ as possible, I don't think the right way to go about it is by doing it manually. I think this thing is going to emerge in the future as like an obvious way to move DJing, especially when you think about radio stations that have a hot mix DJ that does this thing all day. So, and that's in every city, around the world. This thing makes random mixes all the time. You just have to hit refresh, and it'll just come up with a whole new mix. I would never mix Tribe Called Quest with some dance hall. But there it is on time. Woo! All right. So the song data is a list of data about songs. It has the title and artist, but those don't really matter. That's just to show in the console. These things are the things that matter. The BPM, the key, and the ID. This is just pretty for you guys when you look at the console here. If you open the console while you're playing, you can, it'll log all the songs as you're going through, and it'll tell you what the next one is every time. So here we know, up next, Master P and T.I. are coming up. This code here isn't me. I think that's SoundCloud. I don't know what that URL even is. SoundCloud engineer should be ashamed of him or herself. Not really. So then, okay, we got the song data. So we brought in the song data. Come on, GitHub, what are you doing, man? All right, we're at preload. No, we don't want preload yet. We were in init. So song data, you see what it is. It's an array of data about songs. Tempos, what's that? We're back. Sorry. JS. Tempo. So what is tempo? I'm going to tell you what tempo is. Tempo brings in song data and it brings in config. Config is probably where I should have started this whole thing, but whatever. I'll do it after this. Song data comes in and we need to get tempos. We're going to make a thing called tempos, and it is a list just like the other thing, see? So it's got a box and then it says dot sort. That just means reorder the items inside the box. So it's still just a box. And we make a thing that's a set, which means it won't have any duplicates in it. Okay? And we're kind of being very hand wavy here, but we're saying make a new set where, you know, for each song, return its BPM. So what's that mean? Well, it's going to go through the entire list of song data, and every one of them has a BPM, and it's going to say, okay, this one was 93. Okay, be like, okay, that's a new one. We have one called 93 in the box. Okay, cool. And the next one is 83. Okay, cool. Don't have that one yet. Put it in the box. And you give it 93 again. It's going to be like, well, already got one of those, so don't need to add it here. So it's just going to go through and make a new set, which is a new unique box. Like all the items in the box are different. And it's going to make a new box with all different items in it of the song data. And there's only 3 in there. There's 94, 84, and 103 or something like that. And so it's going to do those and it's going to sort them so that for each of them, it's going to compare the two, each pair, and this is the right thing to do here where it's going to order them the right way for us. And then the seed here, I think, is what do we do here? We pick a random random song. Okay. Yep. Why are we doing that? Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So the way it works is, it randomly picks one of the tempos. Got it. Okay. So then we either defer to the config to get the tempo, which, right, could be a tempo value that's not even in the set, but we'll not worry about that. But it's hopefully a value that's in the set. Or it's going to pick a random tempo. So if it's got 3, it's going to just pick one a third of the time. And then when we set the active tempo, this allows another module to assign the tempo, so that when we could maybe make that code inside here. I'm thinking about it now, but anyway, we let someone else, if the tempo is between 50 and 200, which I could also tighten that up, then set the tempo to the value that you gave it. Okay. So in init, so far we've got a list of tempos, which is, like I said, a box of integers that are the BPM values. So there's only 3 of them here, like 84, 94, 103 or whatever. And then song data, which is the songs themselves. Next, don't worry about this. This just says if you're running locally and you're not on HTTPS, get on HTTPS. And then here, show the song matrix. This is the thing that runs every time it starts first. Logs these 3 right here. Cool. What's next? So anyway, this just renders the songs. I do this because it helps me see where there are gaps in looking at all the songs. I would love it if all of the keys had the same number of songs in them. Like pretend they all could have 100 songs or something like that, right? If they all could have 100 songs in them, that would be really cool. And so but what I've seen is, as I'm bringing songs in, they don't come in randomly. There are keys that are preferred, and there are like solid keys that are really strong, and there are keys that are like super deficient. So some really have to work hard to get the songs for the keys. Actually, changing the tempo has helped with this, because some songs change keys, but maybe that means that maybe it works against me too. But I think that there are some songs, some keys rather, that don't get a lot of songs compared to others. So this, when I render this, it helps me see, key 7 only has 2 songs in it, but key 1 has 13 songs in it. So then I think, okay, well, maybe I need to record a bunch more songs and that are all pitch shifted. And then before I start chopping them all up and putting them in here, analyze them all. Like say maybe do 100 of them, and just focus on the ones that I'm deficient in key-wise, and then fill that up until then I can make another pass where they're more even, and then build back up with songs that I want to hear on top. And so then going back and again filling those in again so that they're even. But it's a lot of work and reviewing, and no one's ever done this, so for me it's like I'm learning as I'm doing it as well. So what this does though, it goes through the list of keys, okay? First it goes through the tempos, which is 3 values for us here, 93, whatever, yeah. And then we go through the each of the keys, which is basically like saying, hey, go through numbers 1 through 12 is what we're doing here. So for numbers 1 through 12, where this is a number 1 through 12, it might be actually 0 to 11. Go through them all, and for each of them, if it has a BPM, if the BPM of the song doesn't match the one that we're currently the tempo we're currently working with, don't worry about it. Don't include that one. If it has a computed key, then don't worry about the key. Use only the computed key. If it has a computed key, see if it matches the index value. If it does, like return true if it does and false if it doesn't. And basically what that means is like include it in the list or don't include it in the list. And then same here, if it doesn't have a computed key, do the same thing with just the key. So if there's a computed key, it totally ignores key, just so you know. And that makes hopefully better mixes. Then at the end of this, we've got a list for each tempo of the songs that are in it. Cool. All right. And then we're in index. Init, tap to play, and preload. So next is tap to play. And so this does some DOM kind of stuff, I think. Let's see. Okay, so this is just like, hey, we're going to make a thing called play button that is the play button. If you look in the index HTML file, there's a thing with an ID of play button and a thing with an ID of pause button. And then what does this do? This is like handling the iOS stuff. It makes the right sort of listener for the web to use for mobile stuff. Basically this is a thing to check if it's mobile, and to do an event if it's mobile one way and another way if it's not on mobile. And then it adds those listeners to the buttons that we found. And it hides the pause button when it loads so that you only see the play button. Although this happens pretty late, I should make this happen much faster. But anyway, it's fine. Then start the application. We hide the pause button. No, we unhide the pause button. We hide the play button, and we do this context resume, which is basically, this is the secret to making it work in iOS. And this is how you pause it. So the pause is kind of free with the way that it works. So that was kind of cool because it frustrated me for a while, not knowing how to do it. Then what was the other thing? Preload. This is really where this is another thing that I copied to get it to work. And so this does a lot of the hard work of the app. This is probably the most thinky part of the whole program, but it also has some weird stuff probably in the wrong place inside of it. So what we do though is when the window loads, we init. Okay, and the window loads. I'm not going to go through all these imports. I'm just going to go through the thing. When the window loads, we init. The buffer loader makes a new buffer loader, and it does this get tracks business. And so that's a big one, right? This is how the whole thing works right now. This is basically the algorithm of what we're getting into now is the algorithm of how this thing works. So I'm going to try to walk through it and explain it, but it'll probably be confusing because I've never done this before, but we'll see. So I'm going to look at, when I'm talking about getting tracks, I need to return an array, which is like a box of songs, which is like, how are we going to do that, right? So the best way I can think of it is pretend that you've got a folder on the internet, first of all, to simplify everything. Pretend you got a folder on the internet, and it's got a bunch of songs in it that are numbered, right? Like just like what I'm talking about here, like this. And so if you assume that's true, then you're like, okay, well then all I need to have a song represented is a URL, which is a string. So that's easy, because a string is just like this is a string, so that's fine. So now what we need is an array of strings. So that's not so bad now, versus like who knows what we're going to do before. So some of this is, this is magic time, is not really that fancy, but what we do is every fifth song we do station identification. So that means we may play one sample on the 1 of the intro and another sample on the 3 of the intro, or whatever, or maybe 3/4 of the way through the intro. So this magic number tells us how frequently we're going to play this station identification. Okay, and yeah, let's see if there's anything else we should call out here. Holder, I wouldn't worry about that yet. It's holder is to store something to do a trick that we may do a different way, so don't even worry about that. Track index, when you start, track index is 0. That just means like the first song. If you're an engineer and you have a list of things, the first one is usually ID 0. That's just to say that's the beginning. So, anyway, there's going to be things where you may think it should be 1 or something instead of 0, but whatever. Just go with me here. And then this file thing, we're going to make a thing called file, right? Just like I said before. And this is a function, and it returns a string. And this string is this is the string that we use to use the file. So even though this doesn't look like it's going to get you into this folder here, that is precisely what it does. So here's to say, like, go up a directory from where this file is and look in your music folder, and then use this value, which is a string that starts with a bunch of zeros, up to 8 of them, and then has a value of the integer, which is what you pass in when you make this thing. And is lead is what you tell it if you need it to be an intro, not the full version of the song. So here we've got a number, pretend 0000001, right, for the first one. That's what this is so far. So it's like, look in music for the file 0000001 dash is lead. And is this true or false? If it's true, then it's lead. If it's false, then it's body. And then file type is just like configured by the application. It's either MP3 or WAV. So this is using some dynamic stuff. That's what this fancy thing around it is. And same here is doing some fancy stuff, and here is doing some fancy stuff. So that's what those little symbols mean. When you have this kind of a string inside of what are called backticks, then you use these little fancy templatey boys here to send in values that are dynamic, versus things that are just normal. You just type normal letters in. Like you could just, like, see how there's a dash here. You just put whatever. Oops. Just put whatever you want there. Anyway, you get the idea. So back here to tracks again. JS. Tracks. Okay, back here to tracks. Get tracks. So the first time around, it is magic time, because the track index is 0, and 0 modulo magic number is 0. So don't worry about that. It's just saying the remainder of 0 divided by 5 is 0. So don't worry about it. It doesn't make any sense for the first case, but when you get to, say, 5, 10, 15, 20, those are cases where the modulo of magic number being 0 also happens, and that's when it makes sense to play. That's what we call magic time. That's when we play the station identification. So it's not an industry term. It's just something I made up. I thought it sounded sexy. It's not a real thing, just in my head. So if it's magic time, we log station identification, and then we're going to get our 2 songs. And the way we do that is we take the modulo of track index and magic number. Right, if it's 1, then it's like magic time, and we just played an intro, so we have to play now the body, the main version of that song. So that's what this is doing here. If it's 1 after magic time, so we just had magic time and now it's 1 move after magic time. If that's the status, then play the long version of the song we just played the short version of. So it doesn't have to do any computation or guessing then. But if that's not the case, then we need to get a song. And so if we get a song, we get the songs that are in this tempo and for this key. Oh wow, I've simplified a lot of this in the new code. So we'll just black box this for now. We have this key songs, which means all this tempo songs that are also this key. It's more restrictive. And then this tempo songs, which is like all songs that are in this tempo. Because we couldn't really mix 2 songs that aren't in tempo. So as long as they're in tempo, we can mix them. So pretend we only had 1 song in our key. We didn't have 2. Well, we could just randomly pick the other one. That's what a real DJ would do. If you were concerned with repeating songs, and this thing is, then it wouldn't want to repeat a song. It would want to pick a different song. So again, it's all about the algorithm of how this thing works. It wants to remember songs that it's played and not play them again, at least until, you know, sufficient time has passed. So here what we do though is if there are songs in this key songs, then we can get a random ID from there. If we get an ID, what we do is we look at the list, basically like pretend we took that key and the two next to it, we put all those songs in one bag and we stick our hand in and pull one out. That's what this thing is doing here. So we're just getting a random ID from our bag of songs that is like good enough, close enough to the key to be used. Now I've switched it up with the algorithm. I've made it sometimes be 5, you know, or more, or you can make it be all of the, you know, there's all kinds of ways you could customize it or make it do different things every time or something. So there's lots of ways to customize this, but the way that it works now is if it's on key, if the active key is 5, you could play songs from a key of 4 or songs from a key of 6. So anyway, it's going to get this bag of songs and it's going to pick a random one, and if there's songs in this key and this tempo, it's going to return one. And that's generally the case now. There's so many songs now, it would be hard for this not to be the case with one pass. Even with 2 passes would be fine. That is to say, like we play a song in 5 and a song in 5 and a song in 6 and a song in 6 and a song in 7 and a song in 7, like that, instead of what I'm just playing one of each of those now. You could get away with doing 2 or 3 blocks each time without running out of songs right now. But that wasn't always the case, and so when this was written, that was definitely not the case. So I wanted to make sure that it would fall back and not crash in case it was out of songs for a given key. This is less of a concern now. So then here you see that we either are playing the long version of a song we just played, or we got a new song from our key bag. Okay, and then it's going to queue up the next song too. Keep in mind, when this happens is not right when the song is about to play. This is all happening generally. I mean, the first time there's nothing playing, it starts one, but then right immediately it does the second one. So as soon as the first lead starts to play, we load the second lead immediately, and so then it's downloaded like a 10-second MP3 file first, and started to play it. And as soon as it starts to play it, it queues up that next pair of long versions of the song. So now it's got like two 40-second MP3s it's going to download, as well as the samples that come with station identification that were downloaded first. Those won't be part of the second download. So we now get the actual tracks, right, by ID, because we randomly picked one out of here, and that song had an ID, and so we have that ID and we get that file. Okay. So then these are, if it's magic time, we add these guys as well. So we've got the first and second track files, which again, file is this thing where we give it the integer and we say if it's lead. And that's what we do here. We just say we're getting a file, this is the ID, and this says if it's magic time or not. See, so that works here. And it gets, every time it gets the right value here for what we're doing. Hopefully that makes sense. If you're understanding JavaScript, if that makes sense to you, it's not that complicated. So it's a good way to learn some JavaScript there. And then we got those 2 and up to 2 more. And then we make an array that is just those first 2. Again, this is a box that has those 2 things in it, separated by comma. Nothing new there. And then if there's a third track, I could have said if magic time, I guess. Then, so yeah, this could both be magic time. Then it's going to push these 2 songs into there as well. There's other ways to add things to an array, but I used push. Push says, hey, return array, which has these 2 things in it. Stick this thing at the end of your array. And it's like, okay, sure. So then 3rd and 4th appear in there. And then is magic time. Right, if it's magic time, we're going to save a song so that we don't have to look it up next time. And so that's just going to take the 2 IDs that we just played and store them in memory temporarily. That's what this holder thing was, that we're going to do better in the future. But for now, it works this way and it works okay. And if it's magic time, we don't update the key because we just played a song intro and we want to preserve that key. We don't want to change it yet. But if it's not magic time, we always want to change the active key. And update the active key. It used to also go backwards. I think it still might. Yeah, it still goes backwards, but I'm not using the backwards stuff right now. But you know, it handles when it overflows, and it adds one to, you know, it adds one to the key and moves it around. And you can also get the next key. If you get the next key, you tell it the key you're working with, and if you want the previous key or not. You can also like wrap these with other ones to get like 2 keys out or 3 keys out in a given direction. So then anyway, we update the key, and then if the if the magic numbery thing isn't 2, because that must be when we change. This took a long time to figure out. This took like at least 2 days for me to really understand fully. If this number isn't 2, then change the color of the background. Oh, okay, this is why this is confusing. It's like an off by 1 of when we change the keys. So we don't want to change the background color. We don't want to change the background color when we are switching from intro to main, but the rest of the time we want to do it. So that's what that has to do with. And it also has to do with when we do this. So again, I said it's confusing when we do this because it happens right after a song is loaded. So we don't want to do this exactly then. We want to do it at another time. So I think this is all making a callback or something, but anyway, we'll see where we're going with this here. And then track index plus equals 1 means, well, it was 0, right? We were keeping track, originally track index was 0 when we started. But every time you play a song, bump the track index up by 1. That's how this whole thing works. See, that's how it knows, well, the magic number versus the track index, what should it be, right? So this thing keeps track of that. But now the thing is that this code works very closely with this preload code, and this preload code happens at a very funny time. Like I said, the first time when the window loads, that means like the page is ready, like when you go to a web page. It makes a new one, gets the tracks, right? And when it's done, it calls this finish loading thing. Okay, and we get like 4 songs basically. Remember, we get 2 intro versions and we get 2 samples for station identification. So this is 4 songs the first time around. And so when we do that, then finish loading happens, and we get and start buffer as a function I made to play a song. So this is to say, like, a buffer is basically a streamy version of the song from the file. So we say, hey buffer, let's give me your first item. Remember I said first thing could be 0. That's what this is here. So we're looking in the box at the first item. It's probably confusing, but that's just how JavaScript is, so you should get used to that if you've not seen it before. We're looking at an array. We want the first item. That's what that means right there. Buffer list is an array, and we're getting the first item. And when we do that, it has a special add listener thing that tells me when it ended, because that's important. Then it's because there's no way to get a callback when the song is over. So when the song ends, I want to give myself a callback. And what I do at that callback is start the next song. We init again. That's important. But we don't want to do it for all of these because then it would fire multiple times. We just wanted to do it once. So that's why only the first one has that. Then the second one, well, the first 2 are just the main intro versions of the song. So it's like going to play the first one and the second one simultaneously. Okay? They're going to start. And actually, it starts it and it stops it when it's supposed to end. But it also pauses the entire thing as a first step. Does that happen here? I don't recall. But anyway, then if there are samples, we also queue them up. This one happens at beginning. That's the Star Trek intro sound that we want to play on the 1 when that intro version starts. And then this one, this is cool because this opened my mind to what I can do here really. I can think about, if I know that there's 64 parts to a song, I can mathematically grab any of those moments and do something special. So there's a lot of potential here with this sort of thing, where here I'm just saying whatever the active tempo is halfway through it. So I'm saying like, yeah, divide it by 16 because I know that there's some 16 bars in there, and take that number of tempo divided by 16 and then divide that by 2. So like I think that's saying halfway through that sample, however many seconds it is, plus the buffer padding, which keeps track of how many seconds we played so far, which is important for the timing of the web audio API. then it starts the sample halfway through, just based on math. So that's pretty awesome. That's very powerful right here, and I can see lots of this happening in the future. And like I said, this one just starts on the 1. And again, we say bar duration, 60 divided by tempo. So this is saying, well, there's 60 seconds in a minute, and the tempo is 94 beats per minute. So how many, what's each bar? How long should it be? And so then, if the song we're working with is shorter than 15 seconds, because this is true for all of the intro versions currently, it wouldn't be true for all tempos though. So this may need to change with another tempo. Then we want to use the bar duration, which is this time, times 16. This is like a super duper accurate count of how many seconds this thing should be. Not at all listening to the file, but just what it mathematically should be. So this is like the in theory BPM. And then if not, then we'll use bar duration 64, which just means right, like 4 of those 16s. And then we set the buffer padding, which adds again to the time that we've played so far for the next calculations that happen when this gets called again. And now this code used to be in tracks, but now it's out here because of the way things get called and when they get called. But this, if we always reset the songs every time we switch the key, so that it re-gets from song data, so that any songs that we've played that we were remembering, we will now forget them. So we didn't play any songs twice the first time, but now when we change tempos, because like if we play 84, and this works because there's 3 tempos logically, but it didn't work when there was just 1. When we play 84, we want it to play 1 time around the clock. You know, we want it to go, if it started at 3, we want it to come back around at 2, and then just as it goes to 3, we want it to change tempo to the next one higher. So if the tempo is 84, we go to 94. If it's 94, we go to 102. If it's 102, we go to 84. This isn't very dynamic, and like there's a lot of shortcomings here, but it's fine for now. And we log that the tempo has changed and what the new tempo is. We also replenish the buffers as we're using the buffers and playing them here. We may not need to do this. We may be able to recycle them more efficiently, but I basically throw the old ones away and make new ones, put them into this buffer list. That's where we get these buffers from here for get and start buffer. When we start the whole thing, we make a little pool of buffers because it takes time actually. And so we don't want to waste that time. We want to have those buffers available so that when I start telling songs to play, there's no delay. I need them to just be ready. And so if I make the buffer and then tell it to play, that takes longer than if I just tell it to play. And I've just already got a bag of them that I'm just kind of like taking one out of as I need it. But then as I'm taking them out, it would be empty if I didn't put more in. So after I've done all this work, I put the buffers back in. And then for the first song, for the first song only, we call this again right away so that it loads the long version of the second song. Once we do that, then everything's kicked off, then the other thing works to call init from here. All right, well, that's a lot of stuff so far, but we've just only begun. We started talking about index, and we talked about init, tap to play, and preload, and we've gone through all those things right now. So you basically have an idea of how this thing works, and you see that song data is a collection of data about songs that we've put into our music folder, but there's no music in here, and so like there's no way you can run this thing. But what you can do is you can go to CaptainKirk.com and you can look at the network tab.
Right now I'm getting money with Captain Kirk. That's how it is.
Woo! All right. Oh, I didn't mean to close that. Rats. This is Milk D. His name is also Kirk, by the way. Big shout out to Milk D. Thank you. Hope he's gonna. I'm sure he's gonna tell me soon to take that off. We'll see. I appreciate the love though. So big ups to Audio 2 and Top Billing. Milk D. Big ups. So anyway, if you look at the network pane, you can see that we are moving some files here. Where are the songs though? Do you see them anywhere? I don't see them. Oh, there we go. So here you can see that this is music files that are being downloaded. So Yeah. 87 and 24, right? So if we look at the console and we look at the songs that are playing, they're ID 87 and 24. See? And that makes sense to you because you understand how this whole thing works now. So, you want to make your own version for your own website or to use at a club? Well, you can just call me and I can help you work on it. Or you can do it yourself. You can just download this thing, right? And it's not that hard. Let me show you something here. Here's what I did. Here's how I made the songs. Let me see if this is in there. No. We'll put in Hot 16 was the original name of this project. We'll look at this guy here. So, okay, yeah. So here, this is good. I've already got one in. Nice. So first, this is my old approach. Oops. I would record. I have a Roland DJ 505, which has a built-in drum machine, and so I would record. It also has Serato. I would record a beat being played with that thing at a given tempo. So this time I recorded at 94 beats per minute. Let's see if, oh yeah, of course. The thing about this is it never knows when you change your audio devices, it never knows, so you always have to go in and say rescan. Anyway, here, we've got a beat, see? Now the reason I did this, one, this is the thing I'm using to record my songs with. So whatever I'm asking, whenever I'm asking a thing, what tempo is the song, I need it to be correct and not even a little bit wrong. So this thing is the thing that tells me that. So since the Roland is my DJ controller and it also has a drum machine, I can rely upon its beat to be consistent with the tempo that I'm trying to achieve. I hope. In theory, that's what I told myself. And it appears to work so far. But I have a better way now. But anyway, this is how I used to do it. And this is how you can do it. Otherwise, you'll go crazy probably. So you can... here, I'll play this beat over it and we'll see if it's lined up already. Maybe it's not. Let's take a look. Like, see, just looking at it, it looks okay. This is probably something I'd look at here. I'd probably be like that. But I love looking at this beat right here. This is my favorite beat to look at, actually, right here. I like to put this one right there. It's the high, the snare right after the first 16 beat. That sounds good. Anyway, you see, real DJs do this live and they don't get to fuss over it as much as I do. But I get to sit here and fuss over it. Alright, so there. It's pretty good, pretty lined up, right? Well, what I did before this was I set up a beat where the 16 is in this drum machine here. And I set up a 64 where this drum machine is. And I mean, I zoomed all the way in because I care about this thing being perfect. So I looked at here, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I want it. And so, same deal over there. Like, I try to be as precise as possible because, you know, whether or not these things are the right length shouldn't matter. It should matter the mathematical functions and formula that I'm using to tell it how long to play for and stuff like that. So if I do this part right, then that part should work right as well. So what we have though is this is a 1, this is a 1. This is the 16, this is the 16, right? Like they're locked up, you'd say. If the songs weren't metric, like if they weren't, you know, 1-to-1, like say 4/4, just like this one is, and you know, having the, you know, if I grab it and I go like that to it, it's not going to sound right, you know what I mean? Anyway. They're locked up the right way here so that musically they can work together, they can harmonize. And so if they're of the same key, that will be even more likely that they'll harmonize well. So then what I do next, I copy this bad boy, make a new file, paste them into there, and I export this, right? And I give it the kind of format that I need, like where I'll say, you know, just to show you exactly what I would do in case people are genuinely watching this for that instruction. I'd be like export as wave or whatever, and I'd be like 1, if that's the one, and it would be like, this is the lead, because it's the first one. I'll put lead, and I'll hit return here. I'm not going to do that because I think I have songs in there. And then I would close this and say no, and then I would come over here and grab this bad boy. Same thing. Again, I've got these guides set up just for this purpose. Paste that into there. File, export as a wave. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. This is body, and then I would save that. So then I would have a lead and a body saved. Now another thing I would do, I would also normalize the volumes, and I would do some other stuff. But don't worry about that. That's all the fun stuff that you get to figure out if you want to do it. So that's the whole project. That's really all this thing is. And I'd say go to captainkirk.com, please. Go to my SoundCloud, please, if you want to show love, like the project. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. This is my first time trying to explain it, so it's probably horrible. But I hope some people watch this video, and I hope some people use this technology, and I hope it's cool. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one.